All right, so it looks like you've sent us some really interesting articles about EVgo.
Yeah.
Looks like you're trying to figure out if this whole electric vehicle thing, and specifically EVgo, is a good investment opportunity.
Yeah.
Especially since their stock has been down lately.
Right.
So let's dive into these articles and
Sure.
see if we can uncover some insights about EVgo and maybe even the future of the EV market as a whole.
To really understand EVgo's potential, you have to understand where they fit in
Okay.
the whole electric vehicle market.
Right.
And unlike Tesla,
Okay.
which is a company most people are familiar with,
Yeah.
they don't actually make cars.
Right.
They own and operate a network of charging stations.
Right.
So that's their whole business model.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it immediately ties their success
Right.
to the growth of the EV market as a whole.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the EV market,
Yeah.
one of the articles you sent was from Cox Automotive.
Uh-huh.
And it paints kind of a mixed picture. They talk about a slowdown in the EV market's growth rate.
Uh-huh.
And they're projecting it to drop from 66% in 2022 to 7.3% in 2024.
Yeah.
That honestly sounds kind of concerning at first glance.
It's understandable to have that reaction.
Yeah.
But I think when a new technology or a new market emerges, you're going to have that period of really explosive growth.
Yeah.
Things just take off. And then as it matures,
Right.
the growth rate's naturally going to stabilize a little bit.
Okay, so you're saying it's not necessarily that interest in EVs is waning.
Right.
It's just that the initial boom is starting to settle down.
Exactly. And even with the adjusted growth rate, 2024 still saw record EV sales,
Yeah.
over 1.3 million units.
Wow.
And to put that into perspective, the overall car sales growth was only about 2.2%.
Wow, so EVs are actually outpacing the growth of the larger car market.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And that brings up something like, EVgo's success isn't just about how many EVs are sold.
Right.
But also their ability to kind of capture a portion of those EV drivers
Absolutely.
who need to charge their car.
You need somewhere to plug in.
Right.
And one of the articles you sent over from the Motley Fool, they highlight EVgo's focus on what's called DCFC.
DCFC.
Direct Current Fast Charging.
Okay.
This is where it gets pretty interesting.
All right. I'm intrigued.
DCFC can charge a vehicle to 80%
Okay.
in about 20 minutes to an hour,
Really?
which is a lot faster than
Wow.
a lot of those standard charges you see.
Yeah, the ones you see like in public places and stuff.
Exactly.
That's a huge difference.
And so you can imagine
Yeah.
for someone who's maybe on the fence about getting an electric vehicle,
Yeah.
if you're worried about the time it takes to charge,
Right.
being able to charge your car,
In 20 minutes.
during a quick grocery run or something like that.
Yeah. Or like grabbing lunch.
Right.
That would be a game changer.
It addresses one of the biggest
Yeah.
concerns that people have.
Totally. Yeah. With electric vehicles.
And I think it's smart of EVgo
Yeah.
to focus on that because that's something that people really care about.
Absolutely. And there's a market research firm called Credence Research. And they're predicting some significant growth in that DCFC market.
So it seems like they're kind of betting on the fact that EV drivers are going to want speed and convenience, maybe even more than just a low price.
That's a good way to put it.
Right.
They're really aiming for that premium charging market.
Okay.
So people who are willing to pay a little bit more for that
For
faster,
convenience.
that seamless charging experience.
Okay. So that sounds promising. But one of the other articles you sent from Inside EV brought up something that I think could potentially throw a wrench in all of this.
Uh-oh.
And it's politics.
Okay.
It mentioned President Trump's cancellation of the zero-emission vehicle mandate.
Right.
Can you explain what that was? Sure. So the zero-emission vehicle mandate was this policy that required automakers to sell a certain percentage of zero-emission vehicles in order to meet environmental regulations.
Okay.
So that would be like electric vehicles and things like that.
And so the cancellation of that obviously signals a shift in policy.
Yeah, a more hands-off approach to promoting EVs.
So now the question is, can the EV market thrive?
Yeah, is it going to be enough?
Without that kind of government help.
Right.
Because, I mean, historically, government incentives have been pretty big in pushing new technologies.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, so do you think that this policy shift could be enough?
It's hard to say.
To derail the whole movement?
Yeah.
The whole...
It's too early to tell what the long-term impact will be.
Okay.
But the Inside EV article quotes Mac Hogan.
Okay.
He's the deputy editor.
Uh-huh.
And he argues that the EV market might have already gained enough momentum to sustain itself even without this mandate.
Even without the government's help?
Exactly.
Okay, so you're saying that the market itself might be strong enough to keep this thing moving forward.
That's the idea.
Okay, so what makes him think that?
Well, he points to a couple of things.
Okay.
First, California, EVs already make up 22% of the auto market.
Wow, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, so it's not just a niche product anymore,
at
least in some parts of the U.S.
Right, and California is a pretty big market.
It is a huge market.
For cars in general.
Absolutely.
Okay, what else?
And then he also mentions the EV markets in Europe and China.
Okay.
Where adoption rates are even higher than in the U.S.
So it seems like it's kind of a global shift that's happening, where it's not just about one country's policies.
It seems like consumer demand, technological advancements, concern for the environment.
All these things are kind of pushing it forward.
Are all contributing to it.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
And so it suggests that even if the U.S. lags behind, that overall global trend toward EVs could be enough to keep the market moving forward.
And that would be good news for EVgo.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, so we've got kind of a slowdown happening.
Yeah.
But it's still growing at a pretty healthy rate.
Right.
Outpacing traditional car sales. We've talked about the zero-emission vehicle mandate being canceled.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's reason to believe
that
the momentum might overcome that.
Yeah.
So let's bring it back to EVgo.
Okay.
Specifically.
Yeah.
They're focused on the DCFC. But what else can you tell us about their position in the market?
Sure.
I mean, they're going up against some pretty big companies.
They are.
Right.
So you've got ChargePoint.
Okay.
You've got Tesla with their supercharger network.
Yeah.
EVgo is definitely a smaller player compared to those giants.
So what are their advantages?
Well, that's where that specialization in DCFC comes in.
Okay.
Remember, they're not trying to compete on sheer size or number of charging stations.
Okay.
They're going for a higher quality charging experience.
So they're going for like the busy person.
Exactly.
Who needs to get in and out quickly.
They want speed and convenience.
Right.
And that could be a winning strategy.
Okay.
In the long run.
But is that market big enough?
That's a good question.
To support their growth?
Yeah.
Especially since they're not profitable yet.
That's what we're going to have to dive into a little bit deeper.
Perfect. So I think it's time to look at the financials.
Yeah.
Really assess EVgo's investment potential.
Okay.
Look at their current performance, their growth projections, and the risks and rewards of investing.
Right.
So we'll pick up right there in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. Picking up where we left off those financials.
Right.
You're right. EVgo isn't profitable yet.
Yeah. The Motley Fool article said their stock is down significantly from its peak, and that would give any investor pause, I think.
Absolutely. But remember, we also talked about those really strong market trends.
Yeah.
The continued demand for EVs, the fact that DCFC could potentially attract a premium customer, and the possibility that even those traditional car companies might need charging partners.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of potential there. But that doesn't pay the bills today.
No, it doesn't. So how do you weigh those two sides?
Right.
The risk versus the reward.
I think that's what makes investing so challenging.
Yeah.
And also so exciting.
It is, yeah.
It's not just about the numbers.
Yeah.
It's really about your individual risk tolerance.
Yeah. Are you the kind of person who's comfortable with a high-risk, high-reward situation?
Yeah, exactly.
Or do you need something a little bit more stable?
Right. And you might miss out on the big payoff if you're too risk-averse.
That's a good point. So it's not just about understanding the EV market. It's about understanding yourself.
Yeah.
As an investor.
Absolutely.
Like, what are your goals? What's your timeline?
Yeah.
How much risk can you handle?
Exactly. And speaking of numbers, one thing that stood out to me from all those articles was just the scale of that EV market growth.
Yeah, it is really remarkable.
Even with the slowdown, the fact that EV sales are still outpacing overall car sales growth is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that suggests that it's not just a fad.
Right.
It's really changing the automotive landscape.
And if that continues, the need for charging infrastructure is just going to explode.
It is.
Which puts EVgo in a good spot.
Potentially.
But they're not the only ones.
Right.
Right.
You have competition.
We talked about ChargePoint, Tesla.
Yeah.
How can they compete?
I think that's where that speed advantage really comes in.
Would you be willing to pay a little more?
Yeah.
To charge your car in 20 minutes?
Especially if you're on a road trip or something.
Exactly. Or if you're just in a hurry.
Right.
The difference between, stopping at a gas station and filling up your tank versus having to wait an hour to charge.
And I think the competition in this space is interesting because it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be one winner. Right. It's not like a winner take all.
Like think of coffee shops.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because Starbucks is on every corner doesn't mean that independent coffee shops can't exist.
Exactly. There's room for multiple players in the EV charging space. Right. Catering to different needs.
Different priorities.
Different priorities, exactly.
Yes, some people want the cheapest option.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how long it takes.
Right.
Some people are brand loyal. So if they have a Tesla, they're going to use a Tesla supercharger.
Right.
But then you have that group of people who want the fastest.
That speed and efficiency.
Most efficient option, and that's where EVgo seems to fit in.
Yeah, exactly. And if they can deliver on that promise consistently, they could build a really loyal customer base.
Yeah, it's not can they beat Tesla, it's can they carve out a space for themselves.
That's the question.
That's profitable.
And that brings us back to due diligence.
Yes.
You have to look beyond the headlines, those stock fluctuations.
The hype.
The hype, exactly, and dig into those fundamentals. Yeah. What's their business model?
Right.
What are their growth projections?
What are their strengths and weaknesses?
Their strengths and weaknesses.
Be an informed investor.
Be informed, yes.
Don't just chase trends.
Right.
But even with all the research in the world, there's still a lot of uncertainty.
There is.
With a company like EVgo.
That's the nature of these emerging markets.
It's risky.
It is risky.
But that risk also comes with the potential for reward.
Huge reward, potentially.
And this is where those traditional car companies come back. As the Motley Fool article mentioned, that overall car sales growth was only 2.2%.
Significantly less than the growth in EV sales.
What if those traditional car companies start to really invest?
That's the big what if.
And EVs.
That could change everything.
How would that affect EVgo?
Imagine Ford, General Motors, Toyota.
Yeah.
They all go all in on electric vehicles.
Okay.
They're going to need charging infrastructure.
Yeah. And are they going to want to build that from scratch?
That's a good question.
Or would it be easier to partner with an existing company that already has that network of fast chargers?
Especially the fast chargers.
Right, because that's what people want.
Exactly.
So EVgo could become a really important part of this whole ecosystem.
A crucial part.
Not just serving individual customers, but also partnering with the big automakers.
Potentially, yeah.
That would be huge for EVgo.
It's huge.
But we are getting a little ahead of ourselves.
We are.
So much has to happen for that to work out.
A lot of ifs.
But this is where you as the investor have to decide, do you think the car companies are going to go all in on this?
Yeah.
Do you think EVgo can secure those partnerships?
Those are the big questions.
All right, so we've talked about a lot.
We have.
The risks and rewards, the competition, the car companies getting involved potentially.
Big players.
Anything else we should consider before we wrap up?
I think we've hit the major points.
Okay.
But I do have one final thought. I think we've been mainly focused on the U.S. market so far.
Yeah, that's true.
But this whole EV thing, it's global.
Yeah, it really is.
What role do international markets play in EVgo's growth?
Is that something we should even be thinking about?
It's a really good point, and one that a lot of people overlook.
Okay.
The articles you sent talked about how fast the EV market's expanding in Europe and China.
Right.
And those markets could be huge opportunities for growth for a company like EVgo.
So even if things slow down in the U.S., there might be other places. Where they can expand.
Exactly. And think about it. If EVgo can really make it in the U.S., prove that their model works, they become a much more attractive partner for these international car companies or energy companies that are looking to invest in this infrastructure.
So they can kind of take what they've learned here. And export it.
Export their expertise.
Yes.
Their technology.
Meet that global demand.
Wow, that's...
It really expands their potential market.
Yeah, it really does.
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
It shows you have to think long term.
Yeah.
Not just what's happening right now.
Right.
But where could this company be?
In 5 years, 10 years.
In 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Okay, so to wrap all of this up for you.
Yeah.
EVgo is at a really interesting point. The EV market is growing.
Yep.
And maybe not as fast as it was.
Yep.
But it's still growing.
Still growing.
And people seem to really want EVs.
even with the politics changing.
Yeah, consumer demand is there.
And EVgo, although they're small, they may have a real advantage with this fast charging.
They're in a good position, potentially, to serve those everyday drivers and the big car manufacturers.
So the big question is,
what do you
believe in them?
Do you think they can do it?
Can they navigate all of this?
All these complexities.
And come out on top?
Yeah.
It's a tough call.
It is.
But I think we've given you,
I hope so,
the information you need to make a good decision.
We've looked at the market trends, the risks and rewards.
We've looked at the competition.
So
ultimately,
it's up to you
to invest or not.
Exactly.
And remember, investing is a journey.
It is.
It's not just a one-time decision.
You got to keep learning.
Stay curious.
Keep researching. Yeah.
And on that note, this deep dive has come to an end.
It has.
Thank you so much for sending us these articles.
It was a great discussion.
This was really interesting.
I learned a lot.
We hope you learned a lot, too.
Me too.
And that you feel a little bit more informed about EVgo and the future of the EV market.
It's a fascinating space.
It really is.